Hi, I'm Julie Jewell and you're watching Spotlight on Sparks. Thank you so much for joining us. My next guest I'd like to introduce is Armando Ornelas. He's our Assistant Community Services Director. Armando, I know the City of Sparks has been utilizing CARES Act funding to really help the community with rental assistance and business assistance. And we recently made a couple of changes to a few of those contracts. Can you explain that to us?
So Julie, the first point I need to make about those amendments, or that amendment, was that it was actually retroactive. So in this case, it was a change to the agreement that was approved by the city manager, and that we were seeking the city council's ratification of the manager's decision because the manager had made that decision in the interest of time and given the emergency declaration for the COVID-19 pandemic. So a lot of the changes that were instituted have already occurred, but two specifically. One is that when HUD initially provided regulations for the use of the Community Development Block Grant coronavirus funds, they restricted the length of the time period that a household could receive rental assistance to 3 months. So HUD subsequently changed that to 6 months, and so this change to the agreement between the city and the Reno Housing Authority was intended to allow for what HUD was allowing, in other words, up to 6 months of rental assistance going back, because again, all of the assistance has to be for costs incurred, prior to the end of the 2020 calendar year. The second change was to allow for tenants who had applied for assistance to use a attestation statement, essentially a form of affidavit, where they would be able to essentially to attest that their household income and financial assets met the criteria for the program for assistance, because the Reno Housing Authority had found that many of the people who had applied were having difficulty coming up with all of the required documents, and that was really slowing down RHA's ability to process their applications and provide the aid. So we made that change, and as a result of that, the Reno Housing Authority was able to expend all of the funds, all $402,633 that from the Community Development Block Grant funding that had been allocated to them for rental assistance. So I think those were both good changes. They facilitated use of the funds, and it helped the Reno Housing Authority get those dollars out to qualifying households.
Thank you. And can you give us some specifics on that rental assistance program?
Well, it's my understanding that based on the information that Amy Jones, who is the executive director of the Reno Housing Authority, provided to the council, that to date, 202 households have been assisted with either the CDBG money or other CARES Act funding that the city has provided to the Reno Housing Authority for rental assistance. So that's to date. There's, I think, potentially another 93 households that Reno Housing Authority anticipates being able to get out the door to eligible households between now and the end of the year. So hopefully we will approach 300 households.
And I know we've been helping a lot of businesses throughout our community with our business assistance program. I know they've been very thankful for that. Can you tell me about that process for the businesses and some of the changes that have been recently made?
Yeah, on the business assistance side, what the change to the agreement was really just to change the maximum amount of fee to be paid to the National Development Council. They go as NDC, which is a national not-for-profit organization that assists with community development efforts around the country. And they were our contractor for this. They helped us set up an application portal for businesses in Sparks who met certain eligibility criteria to apply for assistance. And the amount of funding depended on the size of the business and depended on whether they had certain eligible expenses, but potentially it could be as much as $30,000 for businesses that were on the larger side, those with up to 50 employees. The grants that were approved by the city ranged in size from over $3,000, about $3,600 was the smallest one, and then we had a number at the $30,000 level.
And Armando, how many businesses have we helped with our program?
So in total, we have assisted 61 businesses in Sparks, 61 small businesses, and have provided them these dollars. The funds could be used for essentially working capital, so for payroll expenses, for rent, for inventory. They were also able to submit their receipts for personal protective equipment that they had, funds that they had expended to date, and those would be reimbursed as part of that, up to that, that maximum amount. And so, I think we were fortunate in that after looking at a number of different options for doing this and realizing that it would have been a very tall order for City of Sparks staff to do it on its own, to find the National Development Council and be able to contract with them, and they really helped us get it off the ground. And then here at City Hall, I had a role in it, of course, but our staff in the Financial Services Department, in particular, Derek Herron there, really made a tremendous effort to get these dollars out. So the dollars are out, and we allocated a little over $997,000, so almost $1 million to these 61 businesses in total.
Thank you, Armando, and thank you for your heart for our businesses and our renters in our community. I know you've been really instrumental in helping with these efforts.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be able to use these dollars that were provided by the state and the federal government, and with the council's direction and the manager's direction, get them out the door and help people who are, really severely impacted by the pandemic.